group we're looking at today, Group 144. Well, the title kind of gives the game away, doesn't it?
It really does. It's called Death to Jimmy Eat World and Linkin Park on the Road to Round 2. Throw in some copper, too.
Wow, okay. So, not much suspense about who doesn't make it, maybe.
He's definitely wearing his opinion on his sleeve there. So the four contenders fighting it out in this group are Invented by Jimmy Eat World.
Okay.
Throwing Copper by Live.
A big one.
Yep. Then Iron Maiden's live album Death on the Road.
Ah, a live album in the mix.
And finally, Minutes to Midnight from Linkin Park.
Right. So quite a mix of sounds there. Our goal then for this album quest analysis is really to figure out why the ranking ended up the way it did.
Exactly. Especially because there seems to be a bit of a contradiction in the reasoning, particularly around who got eliminated versus who scraped through. We need to understand the logic or the irreverent reasoning behind it all.
Okay, let's start at the top then. Was there a clear winner? Someone who just blew the others away?
Oh, absolutely. No contest for first place. That went straight to Iron Maiden's Death on the Road. They secured that first qualifying spot easily.
Right, so the title mentioning death to the others wasn't aimed at Maiden.
Not at all. The source says Maiden rules supreme, again. Like, this is just expected Maiden behavior for this reviewer.
And it shows why they are always at the top of their game, according to Greens to Rocks.
Precisely. It's presented as just another piece of evidence for their enduring quality.
Now, this is a live album, Death on the Road. Where was it recorded?
Dortmund. Around 2003, so it was capturing them on the tour for the Dance of Death album.
So it's got classics, I assume, but also newer stuff from that period?
Exactly. And that's actually key to the praise. Yes, they riff through the classics, but the reviewer really focuses on how good the Dance of Death material sounds live.
Okay, so that's interesting. It's not just a nostalgia trip.
Not at all. The source describes them as exceptionally good live and singles out the newer tracks, specifically mentioning Dance of Death, No More Lies, and that big epic Passchendaele.
Wow, Passchendaele Live must have been something.
Apparently so. The energy and the execution on that newer material, that's what made it such a clear winner for this group. It just set a very high bar.
So Maiden cruises into round 2, no sweat.
None at all.
Yeah.
Which leaves the other three.
Right, the scramble for that second spot. And the source kind of lumps them together, doesn't it? Calls them more lackluster albums in comparison.
Yeah, which is pretty harsh considering the albums involved.
Yeah.
But that sets up the real fight. Who gets the second qualifying spot and who faces the death promised in the title?
So let's look at who didn't make it. Third place, just missing out, Linkin Park, Minutes to Midnight.
Yep, eliminated.
Yep.
And this was their 2007 album.
That's the one. It was a bit of a change for them, wasn't it? Moving away from the pure nu metal sound.
Definitely. The review points that out, talks about a new maturity they showed on this record.
How so?
Especially on the ballads. He mentions Shadow of the Day and Leave Out All the Rest. Says they managed to tone down the angst without sounding lightweight.
That's a tricky thing to pull off, especially for a band with such a defined early sound.
For sure. And they didn't completely ditch their roots either.
Right. The hip-hop influence was still there.
Yeah, the reviewer says the crossover is still there. It
Wow.
points to the catchy Bleed It Out as an example.
So overall, the take was positive-ish.
It sounds like it. Summed up as a decent effort. But, well, in this quest, decent wasn't quite good enough to qualify. Just missed out in third place.
Okay, so if Linkin Park was third, that means the second qualifying spot, the one that survived, went to Liv's Throwing Copper.
Correct. The big one from '94. That's the album that gets to move on to round 2, edging out Linkin Park.
And Throwing Copper was huge. What was the reviewer's take on it?
Calls it grunge-straddling yet commercial, which feels about right for that era.
Yeah.
And, yeah, mentions the big hits, I Alone, Top, and, interestingly, Shit Town.
Okay. So if Linkin Park was showing new maturity and was a decent effort, how did Live beat them? Was it just better songs?
It sounds like it was incredibly close. The reviewer actually says that musically as a band, Live was only slightly ahead of Linkin Park. So not a massive gap in technical skill or anything.
So what was the deciding factor then? It sounds razor thin.
It really does. It came down to overall consistency. That was the key phrase. The review states, the overall consistency of Throwing Copper pushes it just ahead of Minutes to Midnight.
Okay. So maybe Minutes to Midnight had higher highs but lower lows, whereas Throwing Copper was just more solid all the way through.
That seems to be the implication. Fewer dips, a more unified feel, perhaps, and that consistency, however slight the edge, was enough to get Liv into second place.
Which brings us to the bottom. The big surprise, maybe, given the title wasn't quite Death to Live, fourth place, eliminated. Jimmy Eat World's Invented.
And this is where it gets really interesting and kind of highlights the subjective nature of this whole quest.
How so?
Because the reviewer, Greensterox, actually praises Jimmy Eat World pretty highly on a technical level.
Really? Even though they came last?
Yeah. He explicitly states he'd put Jimmy Eat World above both Live and Linkin Park when it comes to music production and instrumentation.
Wait, hang on. He thought they were technically better than Live, who qualified in second, but he ranked Jimmy Eat World last.
Exactly. That's the contradiction, right?
Yep.
It doesn't immediately make sense. Better produced, better musicianship, but eliminated.
So what was the problem then, if the production and playing were top-notch?
It boils down to the material and the feel of the album compared to what the reviewer expects or wants from Jimmy Eat World.
Okay.
He notes that the band really excels, in his view, when they deliver those sharp, punchy, anthemic rock tracks. That's their sweet spot for him.
Right. That's definitely a big part of their sound.
But he felt that Invented, sadly, was their most lackluster album yet. Despite the technical skill, the songs themselves didn't hit the mark for him.
So the songwriting just wasn't there this time? Or the energy?
It seems to be more about the energy and the pacing. The main criticism is that the album contained too many slow go-nowhere tracks.
Ah, okay, so it dragged.
Apparently so.
Oh.
It diluted that punchy, anthemic quality he looks for from them. Even if a band is technically great, if they release an album that doesn't play to their perceived strengths, this reviewer marks them down heavily.
Were there specific tracks he pointed to?
Yes, he calls out two specifically, Evidence and Higher Devotion.
And the issue was they were just too slow.
Yeah, described as too slow and under par. But the real killer, the unforgivable sin, according to the review, was putting them next to each other on the album.
Oh, the sequencing.
Exactly. He says their placement together really ruins the pace of the album. It wasn't just having weaker tracks, it was structuring the album in a way that actively killed the momentum.
Wow. So technical skill, great production, none of that mattered because the album's flow was sabotaged by poor track order. That's harsh.
Brutal, but it explains the ranking. That lack of punch, the ruined pace it meant Invented, was seen as severely lacking in what the reviewer values most from the band, leading straight to that disappointing fourth place.
It really shows how much album sequencing can matter to the listening experience.
Absolutely. Consistency and flow beat technical brilliance that doesn't quite land right. Live was consistently decent. Jimmy Eat World was technically great, but inconsistently paced, apparently.
Okay, let's recap the final results for Group 144 then. Who survived? Who faced the death?
All right, so going down the list, first place, easily qualifying for round 2, was Death on the Road by Iron Maiden.
Right and high on that live energy.
Yep. Second place, also qualifying, but just barely, was Throwing Copper by Live.
Winning on consistency.
That's the takeaway. Then third place, eliminated, was Minutes to Midnight by Linkin Park. Decent, mature, but not consistent enough, apparently.
Ouch.
And at fourth place, also eliminated, Invented by Jimmy Eat World. Technically strong, but undone by pacing and lacking those anthemic moments.
It's such a clear example of how subjective this whole thing is, isn't it? The criteria clash, like you said, technical skill versus overall consistency. Different things matter more depending on the listener.
Totally. And maybe that's the main point for you listening at home. This specific Album Quest review really throws that into sharp relief. How these personal criteria, maybe you value raw energy over everything, or maybe perfect flow is key for you, lead to outcomes that might surprise you if you just looked at the bands on paper.
Yeah, you might assume the best produced album wins, but clearly not always the case here.
Not here, no.
No.
Pace and consistency took down production quality. It forces you to think about what you actually value most in an album.
Well, thank you for joining us on this album quest into the nitty-gritty of Group 144. Some surprising results there.
Definitely were. And maybe here's a final thought to chew on, looping back to Maiden's win.
Okay.
Given how much Greensterox loved the live energy, especially on Maiden's newer songs, does this whole search for the best album maybe have an inherent bias? Does it naturally favor dynamic, energetic live recordings over perhaps more meticulously crafted studio albums, especially if those studio albums fumble on things like pacing?
That's a really interesting question. Does best mean perfectly crafted or powerfully performed?
Something to think about next time you're comparing a live track to a studio version, perhaps. Or maybe give Invented a listen and see if you agree about that track sequencing.
Good point. Food for thought. Okay, we'll catch you on the next deep dive.